I know we've been talking about expanding your mind, thinking bigger. It really just begins with welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about how to expand your thinking. And this is something that I'm honestly working on myself. I've mentioned before on my story or maybe on a previous podcast that if you only make $40,000 a year in a job working full-time for a company, for example, or even if you're just getting started in something like commission sales and you only did $30,000 in commissions in a single year, and you're trying to grind and make things happen and it just doesn't seem like anything's sticking, it is very difficult to imagine making that amount of money in a day or in an hour or in 5 minutes. Like, hey, I just got a wire for $100,000. Like it's so hard to fathom because sure, your imagination is great. You've probably seen stuff like that in the movies where they're like, hey, money sent, money received, or you see this big check. But if you haven't actually seen it for yourself, how do you possibly believe that it's even possible for you? And so the answer to that is you have to get around people who are at the level that you want to be at and who are doing the things that you actually want to do. How do you do that? Well, obviously you can listen to them on YouTube, listen to people's podcasts. You can kind of quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here if you're watching the video, you can kind of get around them in a way. Even though they may have no idea who you are, you can at least listen to their information, download their information and content into your brain, take action, sign up for their courses. If you want to get more on that personal level, you could even take a step up and join some sort of group or mastermind that they offer. Most recently, I made a podcast about this way before, back in 2019. I went to the Arte Syndicate live event and it was cool. I went as a guest. I met a lot of great people that I stayed in touch with. I still stay in touch with them. We reply to each other's Instagram stories all the time to this day in October 2021. But I finally pulled the trigger. I was not a member myself. I hadn't really been a member in anything. And you probably can resonate with this. I had that lone wolf feeling of, I'm doing stuff, I'm hitting my goals, I'm growing, but it feels pretty lonely. It's definitely a lonely journey where it's just me and okay, I got two cats and a dog, which helps. I at least have some not human. They're pretty much human to me, but I have some warm bodies in the house that move around and come and snuggle up against me. Like that is all that I really have in terms of interaction, unless I go to a coffee shop, unless I go to the gym and start to interact with people in the real world, which I've been starting to do. Obviously, I mean, I kind of have been doing it this whole time, but the world's kind of weird. So some people are like, oh, like stay away from me. You've probably seen this if you have ventured out into the wild lately. But what I've been finding is I need to be a part of a group of people that are like-minded, that are pushing themselves, that are doing more, that are hungry. And that's why I ended up signing up for the Arte Syndicate Accelerator. I'm not at that higher level where people are making $1 million a year or whatever just yet. That's definitely where I plan on going. But I'm surrounded with a lot of people who are killing it in their own right, in their scaling and they're growing and they're learning every single day. So I kind of looked at a couple of articles before I hit record, how to expand your thinking, how to broaden your thinking. And I want to read a couple of things here. I will go ahead and share my screen if you're watching this on YouTube so you can kind of read along. But I figure, hey, we can learn together because I'm still working on expanding my mind. I figured a couple of things out, but I still have a way to go. So there's an article on businessinsider.com and it's called 7 Clever Ways to Keep Getting Smarter Throughout Your Entire Life. So let's look through this. I am going to zoom in. So someone was talking about expand your worldview because your thinking will always be limited to your own opinions and experience. That is so true. So expand your worldview, experience, and opinions as much as possible. I love this because you only know what you've seen. So in order to believe more, you have to expand your mind. You have to go see more. So a couple of these other steps here. So that first one is they're not numbered. They should be if there are 7 in here, but it's bolded. So I should have known that. The first one is open your experiences. The second one, read aggressively. You just won't have time to broaden your thinking by experiencing things all by yourself. You have to draw from others' experiences as well. And that's why books are written. I love that. The next one, journal. Write down your thoughts. It's a great tool for problem solving. I do all the things on this list so far. The next one, study great minds. Choose people who embody what you're trying to become and study them. I kind of mentioned that before I even pulled this article up. How do they make their decisions? What do they believe in? Why do they act the way they do? Very interesting stuff. The next one here says learn to think ahead. People that are great at solving problems and most importantly, preventing them are great at thinking ahead. So start playing chess. It teaches you to think a few turns ahead. Queen's Gambit was cool, but I only played chess like one time after that. I got to play some more. The next one, stay humble. And there's a quote here. I've seen way too many pseudo-intellectuals vomiting out pages of facts and figures in an attempt to convince others of their intellectual ability. Intelligence is something you wish to gain for the sake of improving yourself and not trying to make a point to your peers. Cool. So that's the list. I definitely recommend you check those out just to hover over them real quick. Read aggressively, study great minds, learn to think ahead, stay humble. I think I skipped journal, but that one was on the list as well. They didn't bold that one. It's throwing me off here. Okay, another article I just want to quickly touch on. It is from magneticmemorymethod.com, and this one is called 15 Secrets to Expanding Your Mind and Accessing More of Your Brain. This sounds interesting. Exactly what I'm looking to do. So, juggling with added challenges. Okay, so maybe it's talking about learning how to juggle, helps you multitask, improves your vision, improves your memory. I would not have thought of that. This is a funny thumbnail if you're watching the video. The next one, seek out incredible thinkers. That kind of aligns with that last article. You got to make sure to attend public lectures and mingle, go to meetup groups, join a chess club. Oh, look, there's chess again. The next one, meditate. That one was not on the last article, but it is something that I do. And there are several benefits to it. It says here, start simply, focus on your breath, let your thoughts flow unobstructed. The fourth one here is use a memory palace. You select a location such as your home, and then you identify a journey you can easily navigate. So it's kind of like Hansel and Gretel. You place crumbs of association along this journey that help you remember information. You can learn skills like learn the planets, memorize the presidents, remember the periodic table of elements. Man, I got to work on this Jim Quick memory stuff because, dude, I don't remember any of that stuff. I don't even think I could fill it. I know I can't fill in all the 50 states of the US on a map, but part of the blessing and the curse is we have technology, so you don't really have to know how to do it because we have it at our fingertips. Now, if all the technology went away tomorrow, I might be in trouble. I think a lot of us would be. But that's not the world we live in. So I think it's okay if you know how to problem solve. You don't have to have all these random things memorized. That's just my thoughts. A couple other things here. I'll just read a few more. I don't want to go through the whole 15. It just seems like it's exhaustive. So step 5, read with momentum. So you can learn how to read faster. The trick is in selecting books worth reading, books that will actually expand your mind. I do love this because I am very picky with the books that I read. I don't just read any old book that's sent over to me or gifted to me. I want to make sure it's already vetted. Does it have great reviews on Amazon? Is it worth spending 5 hours reading over the next couple of weeks? I want to make sure that it is, at least by a vote of other people's opinions before I read it. And yeah, I may be missing out on a couple of good books that only have 3 reviews, but you could argue that if they were good, they would have more than that, right? Just my thoughts. And then let's do one more. 6, practice philosophy in everyday life. So if you do a serious amount of reading, you'll wind up covering a fair amount of philosophy. To enjoy an expanded mind, reading is not enough. You have to do philosophy. So how do we really do that? Let's see. Doing philosophy involves the creation of new concepts. Okay, I kind of like that. You get a couple of ideas, you read a little bit, you apply something that's similar in your life, and boom, there you go. You kind of created your new concept. And I've done this myself. I was actually reading my journal I have journals from 2019 is when I started writing out journals, and I actually have them saved. I probably have 6 or 7 journals in a stack over here that I've been reading through. And one of the things that I wrote down in 2020 was that I'm building my business in a virtual way. What will that require? I need people who can show properties for me. I need the pay structure. How much am I going to pay them per hour, per house? How's that going to work? And the things that I wrote about in July 2020 are the things that I'm actually implementing and that are working for me in my business right now. And so it's kind of cool to see when you take the time to sit and think and philosophize or brainstorm, whatever term you want to use, and you apply that stuff, you learn, you get some nuggets from books, maybe you apply that and blend it with your existing ideas. You start to have new ideas and amazing things happen. And boom, fast forward, the business of your dreams is actually the life that you're living. So let that sink in there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I know we've been talking about expanding your mind, thinking bigger. It really just begins with getting around the right people, starting to consume the right content, podcasts, books. That's a great way to get your feet wet. The next step I would say is really physically getting around people, going to these mastermind events. If you can go to an event like the real estate one I went to back in May, there were 15 total people there on top of the staff and everything for the company. And you got to really connect with them from all across the US in the real estate business. For me personally, we had real estate agents, we had investors, we had people who do both, we had people who have rental properties. It was a very diverse group. and we were able to get a lot of great information and share nuggets. And it was cool because one of the tips that I shared, hey, use Calendly to get bookings. And this is with people who buy houses from motivated sellers, like as investment properties. And one guy, we followed up a couple months later in this group chat that we have. And the one guy's like, man, that Calendly trick was awesome. I've already closed 8 deals from using that alone. And if he did about $10,000 profit per deal, which is not a big, that is probably like an average number, maybe even low for this industry in some cases. And this guy's good at what he does. He's good at building rapport and closing and all of that. And he's a good dude. So I'm sure he's at least getting an average of $10,000 profit per deal. That's almost 6 figures in profit just from this one tip. And maybe he would have still closed 3 or 4 or 5 if he hadn't used Calendly. But I am truly convinced that because he used this booking software, those people, when they book the appointment, they stop going through Google to find other competitors to schedule a time with, because in their mind, they already checked that box off. The appointment is on the calendar. So me sharing that nugget with him, he was able to make almost 6 figures. I'm assuming, I'd love to calculate those numbers and then share what he actually made from that tip. But then other people shared stuff with me that I've implemented, for example. And it's just the little collaboration. Someone has an idea that took them 5 years to figure it out. They share it at this event. You're there for the first time. You take that and you run. You just saved yourself 5 years of trouble trying to figure out that thing that they just shared with you. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that opens your eyes to the power of surrounding yourself with the right people and expanding what you believe is possible. Because if you're hanging out with all these people who are like, man, 6 figures is impossible, I'm never going to make it there, it's just so hard, whining and complaining and talking about what they can't do, can't with a T at the end, or cannot do, you're going to start to get that stuff rubbing off on you. You're going to think similarly. When you go to this room, when someone's like, hey, I just made 600 grand last year and I'm about to break $1 million this year, and they've done that in 2 or 3 years, and you start to learn what they did and what worked for them and what challenges that they've had that you can avoid, that's where the magic happens. That's where you really grow astronomically. So that's all I have for this episode. If you have any questions or anything, drop them in the comments section below. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave me a review. Those mean so much to me and they really fuel me to continue doing this, because I do this for free. I occasionally get some referrals and some clients and stuff out of it, but for the most part, I don't charge to listen to this. So the only fee that I ask is that if you enjoyed this, if you got some value out of it, please share it with a friend, or consider, writing a review or sending it to someone who needs some help with this kind of thinking and with this mindset. That would mean so much to me. So that's it for today. Thank you so much once again, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.